No, 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 no.
Hey, y'all. This is the Pleasure and Peace Practice, and I'm your host, Tia, your Pleasure and Peace practitioner. For those of you who may be new here, welcome. This is a space where your pleasure is not optional and your peace is sacred. Each episode, we explore things that are real, raw, and I hope restorative. Through honest conversation, evidence-based practice, and an abundance of permission, I encourage you to feel good. Whether you're here to reconnect with your body, unlearn harmful shame, or just take a breath, you belong here. Welcome in. Welcome back to the Pleasure and Peace Practice. I'm Tia, and today we're diving into a topic that was introduced a little bit last week from our anonymous Q&A. It's a topic that I promise every single one of you has some experience with. Maybe yours are romantic, maybe they're adventurous, maybe they're kinky, or maybe they're tender. Whatever shape they take, here's the truth. Fantasies are normal. Every single person has them, I promise. But here's the thing. So many of us carry shame about what pops into our heads, or we assume that if we have a fantasy, it must mean we want to act it out in real life. This is not true. So let's spend this episode breaking down what fantasies actually are, why they happen, and how they connect to both our mental health and our sexuality. So, first things first, what are fantasies? Fantasies are mental imagery or storylines that we create in our minds. It can be quick flashes like imagining a kiss with someone, or they can be elaborate scenarios we might play out over and over and over again. Not all fantasies are sexual. Some fantasies are about power, safety, care, connection, even. Some fantasies might be adventurous, taboo, but at their core, fantasies are playground for our desires and curiosities. Let's be clear. Having a fantasy does not mean that you want to, nor does it mean that you should even act it out. Sometimes a fantasy is simply your brain's way of exploring a theme. Other times, it's your body asking for more of something, maybe more intimacy or freedom or playfulness. It's really the meaning underneath the fantasy that matters the most. This is especially important for those fantasies that might come up around perceived non consent, which is what we touched on a bit with our listener submitted question last time. Okay, if you missed that episode, definitely want to check it out. Okay, so now that we know what fantasies are, why do we have them? Why does our brain do this? Psychologically, fantasies serve a few key functions. First, they're a form of practice or rehearsal. So, just like you might imagine how a big conversation at work would go, your brain can imagine how you want intimacy to feel. It helps you to build confidence. They're also a stress relief. So, fantasies can be soothing, like a mental vacation. They give us a break from the pressures of daily life and allow us to just slip into pleasure. If there's any fellow romance readers out there or romance movie watchers, this is the same concept. Last, but certainly not least, they can help us integrate experiences. So sometimes people with past trauma or shame around sex will notice that their fantasies bring up those themes. Now, that doesn't mean something's wrong. It could just mean your brain is trying to rewrite or reclaim those stories in a safer way. Then there's the brain chemistry side. So, fantasies can trigger the release of dopamine and oxytocin, the same feel good chemicals we get from bonding and pleasure, which means our fantasies aren't just thoughts, quote unquote. They actually impact our mood just like our thoughts do, because we know that the things that we think and the things that we tell ourselves matter. But we can talk about more of that another time. Okay, so let's connect this to sexuality. It is true that people who feel comfortable with their fantasies tend to report higher sexual satisfaction. That's because when you let yourself explore your inner world without judgment, you often discover new desires, new turn ons, or simply new language for what you want. And fantasies come in all kinds of flavors. I've said this before, I'm saying it again because it's really important. They can be romantic, kinky, playful, nurturing, taboo, and most of all, healing. A fantasy about being pursued, for instance, might not literally mean you want to reenact that exact same thing. It might mean you're craving attention or validation, a sense of being deeply desired. Normalize this. Everyone has fantasies. They don't make you strange, they make you human. Okay. Let's do a quick reflection together. Take a breath and think about this. I invite you to recall the last fantasy you had. Maybe it was a daydream. Maybe it came up during self pleasure. Maybe it slipped in during sex with another partner or partners. Maybe it popped up when you were consuming a book or another form of media. However, it came in, the last time you had any type of fantasy, I want you to just hold that gently in your mind. All right. Once you have it, ask yourself, what's the theme underneath this fantasy? Is it about freedom? Maybe it's about being desired. Could it be about safety? What about play, control? Once you find that theme, ask yourself, how might I invite a little bit more of that, whatever it is, into my real life? Not by recreating the fantasy exactly, but by tuning in to the need behind it. This is one of the most powerful ways to shift out of shame and into curiosity about your desires. If you have the time, this is a great activity to do, maybe before bed or first thing in the morning, just to get your gears working. All right. I want to close with a listener submitted question, anonymous as always, that fits so beautifully with today's topic. So here's what they wrote. I used to have no problem with sex or being ready. Now, after going through some things and probably age, I want more from my partner. I want verbal communication during sex, even if just a little, and I want foreplay, the kind that makes you ready to have sex as soon as you walk in the door. We aren't like that anymore, and I think I make him uncomfortable when I ask him to say or do more. I've tried all kinds of things, like sending pictures while he's away from me, but he doesn't seem to connect all of this to our sex life or just better sex. But if we stop having sex, he notices that immediately. I want to feel like the baddest bitch or just that he's craving me. But he thinks he should be able to just poke me and I'm ready, like we're 21. We would start sex the same way every time if it was up to him. Oh, all right. Well, first, thank you for being vulnerable and honest. I want to normalize your experience. This can be a common shift as we move through life. Sex doesn't stay the same as it was in our 20s. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Our bodies change, our needs change, and often our capacity for pleasure deepens. Sounds like you're asking for communication and foreplay because those things matter more to you right now. They help your body feel alive and ready, help your body and mind feel connected, alive, and ready. That's valid. You're not asking for too much. It sounds like you're trying to do some work. You're sending pictures, you're trying to communicate, and maybe it's not getting through. Okay. I'm also hearing you say it sounds like you have a craving to feel desired. Understood. So if we're talking gonna put this frame this around fantasies, we have a fantasy about being craved, spoken to, lovingly, desirably, being pursued. This doesn't make you needy. This doesn't make you broken. It means that you are in the mood for more emotional and sensual intimacy, not just physical touch. So, what do you do? Here's a few things that you could try outside of maybe thinking about this relationship is not for you. Not saying that's the case, but here's a few things that I'm going to offer up. First, maybe try naming the fantasy, not just the behavior. So instead of, I want more foreplay, you could try framing it around, I love it when you make me feel like you can't wait to get your hands on me. That really gets me ready. This frames your desire as an excitement rather than just a checklist. Second, you might try, and again, maybe you did try these and just didn't have the space to write it all, but here's the other thing I would suggest. Experiment with small acts. So, excuse me, if asking for more, quote unquote, feels overwhelming for him, potentially, maybe start small. For example, tonight, I'd love if you could just whisper one thing you want to do to me before we start. Sometimes baby steps can help partners build comfort. I know that you said that this is something that you guys don't do anymore. So it sounds like you have done it in the past. So maybe also reminiscing a little bit about some of your favorite moments together, right? And reminding each other what it is that really set the sparks flying. So, third, I would say reconnect outside of the bedroom. So, sometimes people miss the link between everyday intimacy and sex. Flirting with him during the day, not just with pictures. I understand you were sending pictures. Great. Maybe small touches, compliments, sharing a playful fantasy, as I mentioned before, that you might have had about him. These things that bridge the gap. Finally, hold on to this truth. Wanting to feel like the baddest bitch, quote unquote, in your partner's eyes is not unreasonable. This is the essence of erotic energy being seen, being craved, being adored. Your fantasy is giving you valuable information. The more you honor that, the easier it will be to bring him along with you or leave him behind. I hope that this was helpful. As always, my anonymous inbox is open if you need more support. So today we've unpacked what fantasies are, why they happen, and how they connect to mental health and sexuality. We've also seen how fantasies can show up in real life relationships, pointing us toward needs and desires that are evolving over time. My invitation is this: hold your fantasies without shame. Let them be guides, teachers, and sometimes just joyful escapes. Remember, you're not alone in them. They're a universal part of being human. Thank you for being here, for listening, for getting curious with me. Whether it's a question, a story, or a truth, still finding words, this space is for you. Whatever it is, you don't have to hold it alone. Ask, share, confess. We're in this together. And if you've got something on your heart, drop it anonymously using the link in the show notes or over on Instagram. If this episode moved you, helped you, or made you feel seen, share it with a friend, leave a rating, or drop a comment. Your support helps this space grow. Follow me on Instagram and Threads at Pleasure and Peace with Tia for more. Until next time, remember, I've got you and you've got this. Talk to y'all soon.